Imagine you're training for a job where actual lives are on the line, but all your practice has been inside a classroom. It's a scary thought, right? Well, today we're going to look at how social work education is tackling that exact problem, building real-world challenges right into the curriculum to bridge that gap. Let's dive in.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll get into why context is just, well, everything. Then we'll look at the specific skills students need for the real world. From there, we'll see how the classroom itself is turned into a practice ground. We'll touch on the tricky role technology plays in all this. And finally, we'll see the huge impact this approach is having in South Africa.
All right, first up, context is everything. So what's the big challenge here? What makes social work so incredibly hard to teach in a traditional way, and why is this idea of context the only real answer?
I mean, really think about this for a second. Being a social worker isn't some predictable 9-to-5. Practitioners are walking into unique, often intense, high-stakes situations every single day. So the question is, how can a university classroom ever get somebody ready for that kind of reality? Well, the answer lies in this powerful concept called real-world context. And the idea isn't just about telling students stories from the field. It's about creating learning environments that actually, as the definition says, reflect the way knowledge will be used in real life. It's all about doing, not just memorizing. And this right here is the crucial point. This isn't about just throwing students into the deep end and hoping they swim. The goal is to build a safe, controlled environment. Think of it like a flight simulator for social workers, where they can practice and grapple with the messy, complex realities of the job before a client's well-being is in their hands. Okay, so if you're building this social work simulator, what exactly are you trying to teach? That brings us to our second section, the absolute must-have skills for the real world. It really all boils down to these three things you see here: professional judgment, ethical decision-making, and awareness. You can think of these as the fundamental pillars for any effective and, compassionate social worker.
So first, let's talk about professional judgment. This is all about being able to look at a situation, really observe what's happening, and then apply the right knowledge. For instance, it's one thing to memorize South Africa's Children's Act from a textbook. It's a completely different skill to walk into a home, see the signs of neglect, and know how to apply that law to that very specific, very real situation.
Then you have ethical decision-making. Look, social work is full of moral gray areas. There are no easy answers. So to prepare students, educators use real case studies. The students have to wrestle with identifying the ethical problems, what's the line between neglect and a cultural practice, and then figure out the most ethical way forward.
And finally, maybe the most important of all, is awareness. This is about looking inward. It's about teaching students to reflect on their own biases, to try and understand where other people are coming from, and to grasp the bigger picture they're operating in. That kind of self-awareness is what lets them respond responsibly instead of just reacting.
So we get the why and we get the what. Now for the fun part, the how. How in the world do you turn a standard classroom into a realistic practice space?
Well, educators have a whole toolkit of hands-on methods. You've got things like custom case studies, often built from the educator's own real-life experience. You have immersive role plays and simulations, and you even have them analyzing breaking news and current events, connecting the dots between theory and what's literally happening in the world right now. And trust me, these simulations can get incredibly real. In one example, students had to run an intake interview for a child neglect case, and they had to do it under pressure, with a ticking clock. See? It's not just a chat. It's a high-stakes dress rehearsal for a critical moment in their future career, designed to build both skill and resilience.
Now, you can't talk about modern education without asking about technology. What role does it play here? Well, as it turns out, it's complicated. It's a bit of a double-edged sword.
On the one hand, tech can be a huge help. It makes materials available anytime, anywhere. It lets students learn on their own schedule, and it makes online group work way easier. But on the other hand, especially in a place like South Africa, it can create major roadblocks. We're talking about the digital divide, the crazy cost of data, and unstable internet. All of that can end up leaving some students behind.
Which brings us to our final section. After all is said and done, what's the actual real-world impact? Why does this way of teaching matter so much on the ground in South Africa? Well, it turns out the impact is huge, and it really comes down to three profound things.
So what are they? First, it means graduates are actually ready to practice on day one, no fumbling around. Second, it develops a deep-seated ethical conscience. And third, it encourages something called decolonial practice. What that means is it's an approach that's built on South African issues and realities, not just on theories imported from somewhere else. At the end of the day, it's about creating social workers who are effective, ethical, and truly understand the communities they're there to serve.
And that leaves us with a big question to chew on. This model, this focus on real-world context, on simulation, on ethical practice, it clearly builds better social workers. But what else could it do? Just think about how this same approach could be used to train doctors, or lawyers, or teachers. Really any professional who's heading into a complex, unpredictable field. It's definitely something to think about.